David, right?
Yeah.
All right. Be right back. Okay? All right. Just grab them off.
No.
No. No.
Sit.
Okay, para el otro lado. No.
No. Sit.
So before we get started, I put on the website on the consultation form. Start recording training sessions, consultations. All right.
What's this guy's name?
This is Nacho.
Nacho.
Sit.
Is it Nacho friend?
As in what?
Nacho friend. So I saw you guys. You did train with another trainer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we did that probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago already.
Okay.
And we just kind of keep it up for when we command him to do something and he's not like, once, like to discourage certain behaviors, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever used it with like this kind of stuff?
Yeah, a little bit.
Thanks. All the fancy.
Can you sit?
Green. So you can just hold them.
No, Nacho. Good. Sit. Okay. Yeah. Good job.
All right.
No.
So there, you see how he like right away just like shut up?
Yep.
So you have an insecure dog. Do you know that?
Yeah. Anxious.
We've suspected,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So like on your collar,
Yeah.
what's your number?
Well, right now it was like way too high. I haven't used it really.
Okay. What's it set at though?
0 right now.
Go ahead and put it to like 25.
Alright.
Yeah, I think he might be settled for now. That was just so that you can settle the reactivity stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we use it. I mean, like, so just to kind of share what's got us, like, what brought us here is typically whenever he meets somebody he doesn't know, right? He's generally protective, reactive, right? And the part that sort of like got us nervous is that when we're walking, right? That's when he sometimes lunges if he's like, if somebody comes too close or what have you, you know?
Typically when he's caught off guard. So like,
Especially, yeah.
so we try to anticipate those situations. So we usually put him in a heel and he's fine. But if like a bicyclist or someone comes out of nowhere, then he will be reactive.
And he's gotten a lot better, like since we did e-collar training and like just has gotten older.
Just exposure, I think,
Yeah.
because we try to like expose him and he's become more comfortable with seeing people.
Yeah.
What's your typical number when you're working with them?
So I think it depends on like, if I'm being real, it depends on like whether we're ready for it or we anticipate, or we like sometimes over, set it. Probably like if it's something that we see coming, and like we'll probably set it like at 15 or something. But if it's something that we get caught off guard, or he's like he stays kind of like lunging, we'll go up from like there to like up to like a 30 or something.
What's the highest you have to go?
I think we've gotten caught off guard. At least I've gotten caught off guard. I'm usually the one with the e-collar, and like probably up to like 45, 50.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when he yelps and like really like it shocks him into like oh yeah.
Now did he go to a boarding train or did you do private lessons?
Yeah, we did just private lessons. Like
Okay.
a package of 5 or something.
How did they teach the heel?
How did they teach heel? On our left side, and then like we started at 0 with the click, and or like with the e-collar. It was all e-collar training.
But how did you shape it? Like what were the exercises they gave you to teach the heel?
I think typically we just have him get into a sit. I don't know, because I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
like
know.
it was really basic. So it was basically like bring him to off.
No.
Tap on the collar.
What's up? taught us that too, like often, anytime a behavior that we don't like is done at that e-collar training session or program. And yeah, so it was basic. We bring to sit at our side, walk and then every time we would like turn, click, hit the e-collar at a very low level. And if he wouldn't listen, you escalate until he would listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go to shorten the leash. Yeah. So you want to prepare for him actually like lunging.
Okay.
And then here on your collar, go ahead and tap again, but don't say off. Just tap. Okay. Tap. Tap. Okay. Now go ahead and bump that collar 15 levels.
So up to like 40.
Yeah. Now tap again.
Hit
Yeah,
tap
okay.
again.
Wait a moment. Right there. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna have you not say off.
Okay.
You're just gonna tap the collar. Okay. And you keep it at 40 now.
Okay.
So when would you turn?
When we were like doing heel.
In response to what? Were you just turning and then tapping, or were you turning in response to something?
Yeah, no, it was usually like the first. I mean, it was like one class that we did, or one or two, and it was like in a parking lot. So we decided whenever we wanted to like turn left or right to guide him wherever we were going.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long ago? You said this was a couple years ago?
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else did they teach you in the class?
Place on like a bed. We haven't done that in a long time. Sit, come, kind of the basics, like 4 or 5 basic commands. Anything else you remember?
No, just mostly commands.
Yeah.
How did they teach the place?
Like tell him, like that was actually the command, so place, and he'd go to his bed and he'd lay down and hold it for a while.
When would you use the e-collar?
So.
Tap. Tap. Wait a moment. There you go. And then here, don't praise him, just ignore him, okay?
So yeah, it would be like place. He'd go to the bed, or we'd be. I'm trying to remember now because we haven't done it in a while. So it would be on a 0, place and click, and then if you do it, then you just praise him or whatever, and then
on 0?
Yeah.
Okay.
And which he usually would. Like after a while, like he's pretty obedient, except when he gets like agitated or nervous or whatever.
Sure.
But that was about it. We wouldn't have to go very high or anything with that. Maybe like a 5 or something, like a tap to remind him, and then you go and do it.
But you have to keep reminding him.
Yeah, I think so. He didn't like place very much.
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it. And I think our hope was that we'd be able to socialize him, to figure out how to get him to be cool around people, at least a little bit more than he is right now, a little calmer, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing is, how did teach the recall?
We had like the 20-foot leash at first, and then it was like 20 feet, right? Something like that. We had the 20-foot leash, and create some distance when he's distracted. You use the e-collar, so it'd be like click, and you tell him the command, or tell him the command and then click, and then as he would come closer, keep pulling on the slack, so to give him no slack basically, and until he would like do it out of his own will. Like once he was coming, then you just don't click anymore, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
That was it. I think that's the last time.
For socialization stuff, is this with humans or just like socialization in general, like dogs and humans?
So he goes to dog daycares sometimes, and he goes to dog parks and he's cool. And that's the other kind of like weird part for us, that when there's people and dogs, he's totally fine when he likes those people. And then when there's no dogs around, that's when he's like reactive with people.
Sure.
Yeah, but he's cool with dogs. Yeah,
Okay.
He's excited with them.
Sure. Anything else?
No.
I'm ready. So you have a nervous, insecure dog. Okay, so when I walked in, ooh, that's an insecure bark. That's why I went and grabbed the sleeve real quick from Enrique and made contact with him. And then right away he was like, what? Right, and then you saw him kind of pivot around as he got spooked. And he's like, oh, because I called his bluff. And then after that, he for the most part has settled. Right, he had a couple more flare-ups, but had I not touched him, he would still be kind of flaring up a bit. And the reason is, he's nervous and insecure, so he perceives me as threatening. So that he's trying to tell me, hey, back off proactively. But then, if nothing addresses that, he just stays stuck. So then when I touched him, like that's the worst thing I could do, is touch him. Then he's just like, okay, well, he's like, well, my bluff didn't work. You touched me anyways, and you're like, I'm not threatening, so like, that was it, and he just shut up, right? So here, the reason why he triggers is the nervousness, okay? This is something that's just genetic to him. Nothing that you've done wrong or anything like that. That happens. There's anxious dogs, nervous dogs, fearful dogs. And I can't make him unnervous, but I can teach you how to handle his nervousness better. We can also teach him how to handle his nervousness better, okay? So a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing here should already be done if you're doing remote collar. Okay, so that's why I was asking how do they teach it, because that's actually where your problem is. Is in my book they taught it incorrectly, and that company there, if I'm reading that correctly, is I think it's a franchise. It's a pretty big company. Yeah. So and I think look on the back of your remote. What model does it say? Does it say ET300 or?
Yeah, ET300.
Okay. So that model of e-collar, it's a good brand. It's a good collar. It's got a lot of functions that I like. But I stopped using them 10 years ago because I found with my behavioral cases, they didn't really hold up very well. So that one, I believe, is appropriate to a dog his size, but I think that model is actually meant for 35-pound dogs and under. Okay, that's where the other problem is. And the reason why trainers use this brand of e-collar is because one, it's easier to sell because it's more economical. It's a good buy for the price for sure. So if you had a 35-pound and under dog, and I'm like, yeah, we could probably get away with it. I have no problem with it. But this guy's like 70 pounds? 75 pounds? So like I had a gentleman a couple of years ago who did a board and train with another kind of dog training franchise, same brand of collar and everything like that. But he had a 90-pound pit bull and dog reactive. And then I walked in and I saw the collar and everything. I'm like, oh, I know, there's your problem. And he's like, what? I'm like, that's meant for a 35-pound dog. And you got a 90-pound dog. And he's like, well, that makes a lot of sense because this dog just completely ignores my collar. Now I know he does respond, right? But the thing is you need more power to get him to relax than you would with an appropriate sized collar. So with the brand that I use, there's low, medium, high power, to think of it simply. So there's a collar meant for like 50-pound and under dogs, 35-pound and under dogs, 70-pound and under dogs, and 70-pound and over dogs. Okay, so I would put him with a 70-pound and over collar, and you'll find you get more from less, but the output and the weights delivered is different. So it's going to affect him differently. He's going to take it more serious because it's talking to him, and it's like boxing. We have featherweight, middleweight, heavyweight.
Yeah.
Do you imagine a featherweight's going to win against a heavyweight? No. That's why we have those classes, right? So you have like a featherweight collar, it's more like a heavyweight type dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I have to go pretty high usually on these. So.
Yeah. And what's happening is you're low, and then you're constantly jumping up high and back and forth, right? That's where the other problem is. Is my theory of, so most trainers teach as low as possible, right? Use your collar as low as possible. And it gets people stuck, where they think like, okay, well, 11, right? And I've had people tell me like, oh, Jesse, my trainer was on 5 to 8, my dog would listen. I'm like, but you're not the trainer, right? Because trainers, like, we know how to use the leash, we know how to move and all these things. We do a lot of stuff that owners don't know that can help the dog pick up on that lower level collar. But the other thing is, the lower levels don't apply to life, right? Because you could be in a room, you could be at the park when it's empty and you're training, and he's at 5 to 8, 11, whatever, and he's great, but then all of a sudden you add in a biker, you add in a jogger, you add in some guy that walks into a room, and now it's not working anymore, right? So my theory is as low as possible, but as high as needed, okay? So we want to find a number that's in the middle. So if I'm at 10 and he'll listen when it's quiet, but then I have to jack it up to like 80 when there's stuff going on, 50. Like that's the middle ground, right? We gotta find that number in the middle, that no matter the situation, if I go from a quiet neighborhood and then turn a corner and there's a person, he should still hold. Okay, we should see no woo type of reaction, because we're operating at a level that keeps him more passive. So here, because the nervousness is there, but if he's nervous and he's on edge too when he's outside, you're gonna get the impulsive reactivity. But if he's in a passive state, he's still a nervous dog. But because he's passive and calmer, it takes more to trigger his nervousness.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And this is something that I deal with all the time. So the reason why I asked about the heel and the place and stuff is because I'm trying to figure out how did they teach the collar. And for me, the first thing is it doesn't make sense to click on 0, because 0 does nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe conditioning you just to always kind of press the button. But anytime I press the button, I want the dog to feel it, because that's what makes you end up using it less. So like, the other thing is they might tell you like, oh, at some point like you want to move past the e-collar and your dog should just listen, right? That's not realistic either. So it's not against the training or the methods, because even with my methods, I tell people the same thing. It's not realistic to expect your dog to always be compliant even without the e-collar. It's because whenever you remove the motivator, performance will always dip. So if you're training with food and then you don't have food, a lot of people complain, my dog won't sit if I don't have a treat, right? We remove the motivator. If we have a punisher or negative, same thing. If you remove it, the dog goes, well, if you can't make me do it, why do I have to? Okay? So like, for us, like, would you work for free? No, that's your motivator, right? You're gonna do work for nothing, right? But then also for the laws. If there weren't consequences to the laws, do you think people would still listen? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for humans. If you remove the consequence or the reward, performance is gonna dip. So, for whatever reason, and this is kind of more so old school thinking, the most common one is like at some point your dog should learn to be a good dog, but dogs don't do that. There's no such thing as good and bad in his world. That's in our world, right? And everybody's definition of good and bad can be different. Someone can have an aggressive dog and think they're a good dog because they want them to be aggressive to other people. But to another person, they're like, man, that's a bad dog, we're gonna be aggressive, you know? So that's also just all about context and the perception and personal opinion. So for dogs, it's not, he's being a good dog because you're making him be a good dog, okay? So he has a learning capacity of a 3 to 4 year old child, forever. Okay, he's not gonna one day mature and become 18 and get a job and pay the rent, you know, forever he's 3 to 4 years old. So we have a 3 to 4 year old child, we got to tell him what to do. Go get dressed, you know, eat your peas, eat your vegetables, do your homework, put up your toys, right? You have to tell them. At no point will we think a 3 to 4 year old child is mature enough to get a job and pay the rent, right? If we take someone who's mentally handicapped, and let's say they're stuck at a 3 to 4 year old age, we would not expect them to get a job, pay the rent, right? They have people, there's special places that they can go to that care for them because they're at that capacity. Same thing for this guy, right? Now, realistically speaking, yes, at some point, the application of the remote would become less because you've done all the conditioning and he knows, okay, mom and dad are strict. If I give in and I become reactive to the biker, there's gonna be consequence. But it's the collar that keeps them in check. Okay, so think of the collar as a cop on the collar. Just like for us, if we were driving on the expressway, most people speed, right? You see a squad car, what happens? Slow down, right? Because now there's the consequence. But then you pass a squad car, you speed right back up again, right? So that's why I tell people, e-collar like a cop on a collar. Okay, when it's present, yes, he should contain himself. He should handle that nervousness better. He should be much more obedient. But the application of it should become less, right? So it's not like every day I'm using the collar. It should be over time. Like my guys, I still have to press the button, but it's once in a blue moon. You know, and it's usually something that's out of my control. So like my pit bull hates fireworks. She gets super anxious when she hears a firework. So if I'm at the park and someone blows up a firework, I can't make her not become anxious to the firework. That's just her, that's her natural response. But I can now get her back under control. right? So that's something that's out of my control, because I don't know when people are gonna set off fireworks, like they're random, right? So, but all the other stuff, the obedience stuff, to sit, to stay, to down, to come to place, to heal, all that stuff, they do no problem. And every now and then, because they're dogs, they're 3 to 4 year old kids, they make a mistake. And I have to remind them, no, you don't do that. But it's like once in a blue moon, okay? And that's with me being a trainer, and as a trainer, I'm super consistent. Most people are not consistent, right? So how far you progress and how well he does, that's just come down to how consistent you are. But also a lot of it is just the knowledge and the application of that tool. Because that's a very powerful tool. Allows you to communicate with your dog very effectively, you know, within the instant, on or off leash. But unfortunately, not everybody knows how to teach it correctly. Okay, and I think that's where you're falling short here. So I had you go to 40 in the tapping and stuff, and he's been able to be more passive. The reason is because you matched his nervousness. And all you, those 2-3 times that I told you to tap, think of it as you biting him. Okay, when you press that button and he feels that contraction, you're biting him. Because that's what dogs do to each other. So if Nacho did something to another dog and that dog didn't like it, they bite him. Right? And then if he doesn't like that dog correcting him, he'd bite him right back. And then they have a conversation, which is a dog fight. Somebody's gonna win. Right? And then once the other one submits, the other one goes, okay, you're the boss. Like, I'm not gonna mess with you anymore. That's how they establish things. So here, you're not doing anything mean, because if another dog disagreed with his nervousness, they would bite him. Okay? So you have to talk his language and know how to apply it, but you also have to be at the intensity he needs. So I get a lot of people that get stuck on the collar because, like, Jesse, but my trainer, all they needed was 8. I'm like, you gotta get over that, because your dog is beyond 8. All right? So that's why I jumped, because I can tell by the contraction and the way he responds whether or not you're too high or too low. Okay?
Why did you say that we should stop using the command off?
So what you're creating is a cued behavior. Okay? So we have controlling behavior and we have eliminating behavior. Heel, sit, down, that's controlled behavior, right? Because if he's off the clock, I don't care what he does, right? If he's at home chilling, like, who cares? But the moment I tell him place, it's expected he goes to his bed and stay there until I release him. An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 30 minutes, I don't care. When I say place, it's go there, don't move. That's a cued behavior, right? Eliminating behavior is when you're teaching him to, whenever he feels the need to bark, like in like a nervous context, he shouldn't. Okay? So let's say we take barking out the window. Okay? One would be the dog's barking out the window, the dog comes, then goes back to barking out the window. Right?
Yeah.
And the other goes, Jesse, I call my dog, the dog goes back to barking out the window. I'm like, yeah, because you called him, right? And I said, yeah. I was like, and the dog came back, right? And they go, yeah. So the dog did what you said, right? Yeah. But did you say don't bark out the window? I guess not. Now your dog's barking out the window, right? Because that's come here, that's not don't bark out the window. If he's barking out the window and I say quiet, and then I correct him, he goes, okay, I can bark, but when I hear quiet, you have to stop barking. But you're thinking stop barking and don't bark for the rest of the night type of thing, or ever, right? And he's thinking, oh, you just don't want me to bark right now.
Right.
So the next time a person walks by, he starts barking again. Quiet, tap. So every single time, quiet, tap, right? Because it's cued. If I go, I don't want him to bark out the window, period, there's just a consequence for doing the behavior. So here, in Chicago, if you run a red light camera, right? Ticket. There's no warning. Just get a ticket.
Yeah.
And that's to deter you from running a red light again. Right? So same thing for this guy. So that we're so used to saying words, but also we understand what we're wanting, and we're thinking the dog understands what we're wanting, and that's where the discrepancy is.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's why I said don't say off, because then you have to say off every single time, and if you don't say off, then technically he can bark. You see how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tiny little detail, but it means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's about how he thinks. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because people are thinking like, well, it's unfair if you don't tell the dog something, right? That's how people think. I'm like, the dog don't even know what off means anyway. He just thinks I hear off and I get a tap. That's all he thinks, you know? So it's we make things unfortunately too complicated. So the reason why I'm effective is because I apply things the way he learns, not the way I think he learns, or not the way that I learn, right? So if you go to Japan, do you speak Japanese? If you go to Japan and you try to teach someone something in English, you think they're gonna learn? No, you gotta talk Japanese, right? So you gotta talk dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your case, from what I'm picking up so far, I think it's easier than you think. Okay, there just has to be a couple of changes here. One, my suggestion would be you upgrade your collar. You get one appropriate to him. Okay, it's the one that he would need is like the best collar there is in my opinion. So it's like you have it and you don't have to worry about a thing. Okay, the second thing would be we have to reteach things, because he doesn't understand the communication of collar well. Because if he did, we wouldn't be here. Okay, so we're going to reteach things. The main one is the heel. Okay, so heel's always the first thing that we teach, and your company taught heel first. It sounds like, is that correct?
No, it was like sit, come,
I think so.
then heel.
Then heel, yeah.
Heel's
Heel's
the
the
left, I think, yeah.
okay. Heel's the first thing I teach. Okay, so the reason why it's the first thing I teach is because it fixes 70 to 80% of problems. Okay, reactivity is a big one. Okay, teaching them how to hold when a bike comes by and a person turns the corner on south. That is the command you need in order for him to learn how to just contain himself. Okay, heel has so many benefits. When you put an e-collar on a dog and you tap, they tend to want to move, right? So before he goes in front of you, then you kind of step to the side and they next to you, right? So it made him move. So we use a moving behavior to allow him to express the need to move, but at the same time teach him how the collar turns on and off. So we use what's called pressure work, okay? So I shape everything from beginning to end using the e-collar. Okay, so first, so we have connection, perception, and working level. I'm sorry, connection, perception, and working level. Connection is when you see the twitch, but he doesn't care about it. So if he's staring at a squirrel, you got connection, but he still wants to stare at the squirrel. Perception would be you see the twitch, he kind of looks around, but he goes back to staring at the squirrel. Working level is twitch, and then he's like, oh, do you need something from me? And he stops caring about the squirrel. Okay, so like right now I found his working level. I made him stop caring about me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to find that number for everything, okay? And it's gonna change according to the environment. So like right now we're just in an empty room and we're at 40, okay? When you're outside, obviously a lot more stimuli, a lot more things to contend with. That number might be higher. It might be higher in the beginning, then you find it goes lower over time. It might go higher, or be higher than go higher, or it might be higher and just stay static. Every dog is different, you know, I help you figure all that stuff out. But a lot of it's just common sense, you know? So once we reshape the heel, like I said, it helps them express the need to move. It teaches them the concept of turning pressure on and turning pressure off. So when you said like we would turn and then click at 0, and if he kept, you know, not turning, then we would bump it. Did you have like a short leash or did you have a slack leash?
I don't remember what leash it was. Do you? A 6-foot leash, I think.
But was it like, did you leave it loose or were you having it short where he was by your side?
Both, I think.
Yeah, I think once we were walking, yeah, we wouldn't give too much slack. It would be loose, but it wouldn't be like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So so I go opposite. I want a completely slack leash where you see the J, because if you're outside and you have a J going on and there's all this crap going on and he's right there at your hip, what does it tell you? He's doing it, right? He knows what to do, or he's learning the concept. And it's important enough for him to ignore everything else and just follow your lead. So a lot of the stuff that I do is opposite to a lot of trainers, but it's the way dogs learn. We tend to prevent or restrain and not allow them to make mistakes. And I give the slack. I want him to make mistakes because that's how he learns the best. Okay. So the heel typically takes 2 classes. The first class just shapes the behavior. And then the second class, I review it, I ask you like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, man, Jesse, that reactivity, 70% better. I go, good. Heel, it's doing its job, okay? The second class, we typically named the command, so like we would stop saying heel in the beginning, and because we gotta reshape it. Come class 2, review it, good, title it. There's some body language stuff that we do to communicate with him what you're doing when you're turning left, when you're pivoting, all that stuff. Come back class 3, how you doing? Hey Jesse, he's doing good, but like we still struggle with like, you know, runners and bikers, like he hates them. I go, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna adjust the number, we're gonna go to here, when you see this, you're gonna do this in response. And then you have to just go out and practice, because we can't really create it reliably, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it's easy. Like once you know it and you understand it, it's like, okay, when we go for a walk, we know what we're gonna do, okay? By class 3, would probably jump into recall, because the main thing is not recall, socialization, okay? Because that's your big business, right? Because you want to trust with people.
Yeah.
So we need the heel to happen first, because we want to see what is the heel gonna help fix, okay? If by class 3, the reactivity is like 80-90% done, and he like you walk in, he doesn't care about me, he's just chilling in the environment, and I might crouch down and you'll see him just walk over to me, like sit in front of me, and I'll pet him. It's because now his head is in a better space, that he's not overwhelmed by nervousness, that we're not going to see the kind of suspicion like we saw earlier, okay? And then I show you how to socialize him with people correctly, okay? So a lot of people think like dogs should love everyone and everything, you know, and then like if someone comes up and they want to pet your dog, that the dog should just be like, okay. It's not how it works, okay? Not even people are like that, right? So it's okay for him not to like someone in his personal space. What's not okay is that he starts lunging and barking at them,
Right.
okay?
Yep.
So here, we're teaching him how to coexist in the world, how to just go out there and not bark at people, walk past people, joggers, rollerbladers, all that stuff, and not be a problem, okay? It's realistic to socialize it with people you know, friends coming over, family coming over,
Yeah.
you know, but it has to be correct, because with a guy like this, if someone comes in and goes, hey puppy, how you doing, right, all that cutesy talk, whatever, the person thinks that it's good, but the dog's like, yo, I don't like that, right? He's gonna become defensive, but that's not his fault. That is the human's fault, okay? Because we're coming in with disrespect to him. Wait a moment. There we go. They're coming in disrespectfully, a lot of energy. And right now, you see how he was fine, and then he heard the door open and something changed? That's nervous dog. They will settle, and then when something new happens, so like let's say I would have just jumped up and started clapping, he starts barking, right? So nervousness, anxiety, and fear look similar, but fear won't stop. Fear will keep barking. Anxiety keeps moving around, they won't relax. Nervousness will relax, but then they'll trigger if something comes out the blue and changes. Loud sound, a door opening, person jumping up and clapping, person laughing, you know, because this is an energy right now, right? And if I was like, hey, he started clapping like this now, it's a shift in energy. And he goes, yo, what was that? So that's nervous stuff, okay? So when it comes to like socializing with people, you know, we can't make them the kind of dog that would just love the baby talk and all that stuff, okay? So it's, yes, we socialize them, but at the same time, it's understanding that there's just some stuff he may not like and tolerate, okay? So then you as his owner, it's you keep your dog under control, but at the same time, you have to advocate for your dog, you know? So if you're out on the sidewalk, and then somebody's like, oh my God, look at that cute looking German Shepherd, right? And they come in like, yo, better back off my dog. You're not gonna approach me like that, right? That happened the other day. I had a client, they have an Australian Shepherd, and human reactive lunging and barking stuff. We got that all addressed. There was a lady who was walking, and some lady just walked by and like turned around like, oh my God, look at you, you're a cute, good little dog, aren't you? And started petting him, and he snapped at her, you know. And then the owner was like, what do I do in that situation? I'm like, I would just slap the person's hand, because it's either you slap their hand or they bite the dog. It bites them, you know.
Right.
I mean, and they're gonna be pissed either way, but one of them is gonna be less dangerous than the other, right? But that wasn't their dog's fault. That was that person's fault for thinking they can do that to their dog simply because he looks cute and friendly.
Right.
Okay? So unfortunately in our world, there's just some people that don't understand that. And they're gonna think that something's wrong with your dog or that your dog did something wrong when really it's them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, 2 classes on heel. 3rd class, we can do socialization stuff. It's controlled exercise. Easy to replicate, so it's not like, because the issue with a lot of training is like, is it realistic? Like, how do we apply this in life?
Right.
You know? So, it's easy enough to recreate. It just takes a lot of repetition. Okay? So like, let's say right now, he's got like, for example, 5 people that he trusts, right? But there's like 20 other people we would like him to open up to. Is over the course of time, as you see those people, whether in your home or whatever, out at like a barbecue or something, he will open up to them because of the repetition. But when we have a dog that's nervous and we don't pacify him and calm him, it doesn't allow him to really become curious. Okay, because he stays stuck in suspicion because he's like, you know, he's nervous about everybody. So once you teach him how to pacify and just be chill, and he can learn to be calm, then you start to see nervousness. I'm not nervous, it's curiosity.
Yeah.
And curiosity leads to socialization. Because he's going to start sniffing at people and going, hey, what are you about? Oh, okay, cool, I've seen you 100 times, you're cool.
Yeah.
But then the problem there is, people see your dog trying to sniff them, and they think, oh, you want me to pet you? He jumps back to his barking,
Yeah.
right? Because he's not ready for that yet. So that's where you know, we have to be proactive.
We said like he's only got like, what did we say, 3 modes?
Yeah.
He's either playing or protecting, and what's the 3rd one?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot. I think he's gotten a lot better when we go on walks. I think definitely like the socialization that we're interested in is like when people come over to our house and like bringing him over to people's house. Like we want to be able to do that, but we've also gotten to know him a lot, and we know he does not like to be pet. So we do try to advocate for him as much as we can because he doesn't like that. And I don't know, would you say he doesn't like big crowds, right? Or
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, no, not really.
he doesn't like big crowds, and we have big families, so sometimes it's kind of hard to avoid that.
The few times that he's met people, like if they kind of like exert control, if they're like, you know, they tell him like, hey, sit, then he's like, oh, okay. He kind of like knows like, oh, this person is like, I should please this person, you know what I mean? Like he kind of like, I don't know, that's like his 3rd mode, right?
Yeah.
That we've seen, like he's like.
Yeah, so yeah, what I was trying to say was that like we don't know how he should interact or introduce him to interact with people and just be chill, because the only interactions that he has with people is either like us or trainers or groomers, people that are comfortable with him. So when they're comfortable with him, we think he's more comfortable with them.
Yeah.
But then like some family, like they don't know his style or they are afraid of him. So in those situations, he's reactive. So those are the 3 modes that we're like, he only knows trainers and groomers, us, and then he's reactive with strangers or people he's not comfortable with.
Yeah, so that's something we can cover too, people coming over. And it's not obedience, it's behavior. Because like if someone knocks and he starts barking, he's being territorial, right? Which is healthy, because that's like security. And it sounds stupid, but when the person knocks, he doesn't actually know it's a person behind the door. He just thinks, I hear this sound, it's suspicious because it's out of the norm, right? And when you open the door and he sees the person, if it's someone he likes, sure, he just gets all wiggly, right?
Yeah.
And if it's someone he doesn't know, bark, 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 he gets more reactive, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Because, so, knock happens, he triggers, he doesn't know who's behind it, and then you open it, he's like, oh, it's my uncle, you know, I love my uncle. Or it's, I've never seen you before, bark, 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 right?
Right.
So, other dogs, let's say a completely stable social dog, they hear the knock, they bark too. But every time you open the door, they're just like, I love people. And they just switch, right? His problem is because his nervousness, he has nervousness. So then he becomes territorial, but then the nervousness kicks in. And he goes, I don't know how to handle this. So right there, what he needs is communication of like, yes, we know someone's here, you need to chill and relax. Pacify him, so that when the guest comes in that he doesn't know, since he's already calmer, we're not gonna continue to get these nervous reactions. We may get a few, you don't have to nitpick at them. But it's not gonna be this constant problem of like anytime they move or whatever, he's gonna start barking, he's gonna be more settled. And as they coexist with each other, at some point, we should start to see curiosity, okay? And then he may smell them. And then let's say you repeat that 20 times. Then one day you open the door and you'll be like this, because he's had neutral experiences with them. You know, because people usually think, oh, give the dog treats and cutesy talk and praise and all that stuff, and they'll trust you. No, it's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's just coexisting, and not making him feel like he has to socialize. So 2 classes on heel, a class on how to handle people coming over, a class on how to socialize him. And yes, you can use food, but only after you've relaxed the dog. Okay, if he's sitting there barking at you or barking at me and I'm throwing chicken at him, and he's like, I don't care about the chicken because you're in my house.
Or he says, I'll take the chicken, but I'm still gonna bark at you.
Yeah,
Which
you know.
which is what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you calm him down and chill him out, and then you add in food, that's a lot different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so like I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. How much, or how the length of time and the cost just depends on how much you want to accomplish. If your main concern is the behavior, I approach things by going, what do you want, what do you need? Okay, so it's like, hey Jesse, we really just care about the people stuff. I go, okay, well we need to have heal for sure. That's 2 classes, okay? 3rd class on the people coming over. 4th class on how do we build on that, socializing them, exposing them, incentivizing him to open up. Okay. Now we can't make him open up, but the minimum is always just coexistence.
Yeah.
You know, so we're gonna have people come over and just like don't bother with people. Okay. That brings us to 4. I know he has a place command, but he doesn't hold it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest stationary control because let's say you have someone come over and it's someone who doesn't trust him. The way they behave, like you said, kind of brings out something from him, right? Because distrust brings out more distrust.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, well, if you don't trust me, why should I trust you? There's a conversation there. So then having them stationary where your guest goes, oh wow, he hasn't moved for 2 hours. They see that you have control over your dog, it helps them relax. And then over time, you might see them open up to him, in which response can lead to him opening up to them, okay? Which leaves, if you do a 6-class program, class number 6, which is the variable. Okay, so if there's something like you're still struggling with, we can use that to review that. Or if it's like, hey, like everything's going really well and you want to teach, like recall. If we can't teach in the class, you got to keep practicing it, but I can give you a good foundation of it, and then you just go off and do your homework. If you did the 9 or 12-week program, you're recovering the same stuff, except we have more time to work on things if needed. Or we just teach more control. You know, because there's 6 commands: sit, stay down, come, place, heal. All those commands are meant to be functional. Those commands are meant to allow you to go out in the world and live your life with your dog. So if you want to take them to a restaurant, if you want to take them off leash at the park and stuff, not worry about them running away, or anything like that, then that's where those things come into play. Okay? Questions?
You've mentioned that we have to learn how to pacify him and help him chill out.
Mm-hmm.
That would be through the use of the collar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I know you said he's nervous, and a lot of that is just probably genetic.
Mm-hmm.
But does he feed? I've always heard they feed off of people's energy. Is that accurate? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Like,
So like if I tend to be nervous. Like I'm nervous, and I'll be walking him, and in a situation where like I'm like, okay, this could be a potentially bad situation, or he might react. Like, does he feed off of that? Like, is that something that he could?
yeah, because you're probably doing stuff that you're not aware of. Like a lot of people
Tighten up the
do this, right? And then if you look at the way I look, I don't look very confident, right? So are you becoming nervous because you know how he is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the way this works is the way we're going to address that part with you is you have to see success. You have to see like, man, we just walked past his arch nemesis, we walked past fights or whatever, and he's just been chill. You're going to go, it's working.
How do you know he has an arch nemesis?
He had an arch nemesis?
No.
Oh.
It's a dog that he wants to meet. I think that they
Oh,
bark
sure.
at each other from across the street.
Sure, yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
But yeah, you have to see successes,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what builds your confidence. So it's obviously working with him, but it's a lot of it's you, teaching you how to handle a dog like this, right? And I've worked with, you're not the first person, you're not gonna be the last person. I get a lot of people that get, I had a lady who used to go up and down 20-something flights of stairs because her dog, she could not go on the elevator. Like, forget about it. By class 2 or 3, she was on the elevator. So she's like, man, Jesse, she's like, you were right. Like, it was just, I needed to see the success. So first you need to see her dog walking past other dogs outside. And then she saw her dog walk past dogs in the hallway, which is harder because it's confined space. So once she saw that, she's like, holy shit, like, this is working. She's like, let me try the elevator. Dog into a thing. Right? Because it's not just it's the successes and the confidence that it gives you, but it's also the confidence of, I have the knowledge to do something, even if he does get out of line. Because that's what makes me a good trainer. Is I come in a lot of times and like shit's hit the fan, and I just go, all right, we're gonna do this like right now. He was barking, and I want to have a nice, quiet consultation with him. Go, bump your number, okay? 40, okay, cool. There we go. Right? And have him moving around and stuff. Earlier, I wouldn't have been able to move when he was sitting right there in front of you, right? But because I already know how to handle this, I go, this is what we do, and I'm able to get the response that I want. So now it's just teaching you, how do you recognize that? How do you get that too, right? How do you get that consistently? And then you're gonna start to see, you know, you're gonna feel better, your energy's gonna be different. But you know, it's a process. Other questions?
Earlier you mentioned how like there's 2 ways to address his nervousness.
Mhm.
Part of it is like stuff that we do.
Mhm.
Is there another part to that, like stuff that would like help him address his nervousness?
Yeah, so the nervousness is a response. He doesn't sit there thinking, I'm gonna bark the next time somebody walks through a door. He doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally something happens, he responds. Dogs are reactive, we're proactive. You can decide, like, you know what? I'm gonna do my research and I'm gonna read about every trainer in Chicago, and I'm gonna pick one, I'm gonna set up a consultation and all that stuff. You can do that all proactively, right? He doesn't. He's reactive. Okay, so we're both reactive and proactive. So here, if you turn the corner and something startles him, his brain responds with reactivity, right? He starts barking. That's where that comes into play. That's why the number is so important. So we have stimuli, response, consequence, response again, okay? So what's happening is the brain starts to anticipate, if I bark, there's gonna be a consequence. So then it starts, like, you'll see where he's gonna think about it, and then right away he's gonna retract, because he's anticipating the hit. So then when the brain retracts and he avoids the consequence, now the brain goes, I won't always get hit with a collar. So now he's gotta do math, where he's like, if I bark, I get hit at 40, but if I don't bark, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like, well, what choice do you think he's gonna make?
Yeah.
But that's why the power is so important.
Right.
Right? That's why the output's so important, because it all depends on the context. You know, if something really stressful happens, you probably need a lot of power to override it. So I have a case right now. So if you want to see some craziness, if you go to my YouTube channel and you search Doug, okay, he's a little solid bully pit. Very extreme human reactivity, aggressive response, okay? And you don't continuous on the collar, right? You know what that does?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a snake like that, and in the first class, you see me on the ground smacking the floor. He was going ballistic, right? We couldn't get him over that, but we made a lot of progress. By class 5, we made a ton of progress, but he still hated me hitting the ground. Okay, so I was like, we gotta do it. I was like, otherwise it stays there. It literally took me about 5 minutes on continuous, maxed out on my collar, before he finally started to stop. Okay, then once we got him to disengage, it became easier. And the next time I saw her, it was like 60 to stop him, right? And this is an 80 to 90 pound bully pit, okay? So even though I had the highest powered collar, he was so extreme and lost up here, it took me 5 minutes of a lot of pressure because you can only ignore it for so long. At some point, he's like, okay, I feel this now. And as soon as I made the brain learn to just let go, it became a lot easier to communicate with him at a lower level. But that's why power was so important. If they had him on your collar, I would have gotten nowhere with that dog. Okay? So it's all about conditioning the brain. So then it's not so much that he's thinking proactively. He's going to think about becoming reactive, but then respond to that in anticipation of the consequence. And then he starts to go, oh, that bike went by and it didn't bark, and I'm good. I wasn't hurt, and I also didn't get any consequence. So I can see bikes go by and not have to bark at them. That's how that works. Okay, you have to teach him that there's another way of being when these triggers are around. Okay, same thing if like you have a bunch of friends come over and everybody starts clapping, he's gonna be like, what the hell? He's gonna be taken off guard. But then he's gonna go like, okay, well, all right, I had a moment, but I didn't bark, and I'm good. I didn't get a correction, and you guys did, and I'm still here. Okay, he goes back to sleep. Okay, other questions? Yeah, so at minimum, I would put you at 6 classes. If you did 9 or 12, we just happen to cover more stuff. Okay, more control, more obedience. I teach up to off-leash level. Whether or not you need auto command, off-leash level is up to you. Aside from the behavior, if you look at the programs, the way it's designed, is 3 weeks is I just want to walk my dog. 6 weeks is walk my dog, go to the park. 9 week, walk my dog, go to the park, go to restaurants. 12 week, all that stuff, plus you go hiking. He's going to be off-leash in unenclosed areas. You take him everywhere with you. He's going to go to friends' houses with you. Like he's going to just do as much as possible with you. Then that's like a 12-class program, okay? Yours just happens to have the variable of behavior. Whenever I do my 12 classes, like it's usually we get everything done. And then towards the end, because I usually recommend that people space out their last classes to give you time to practice everything. So like the client I had before you, they had class 10 out of 12. And at this point, they've already learned everything. They've already learned how to practice everything up to off-leash. But now they need to actually practice. Because you could plan to practice every day, but it's not enough time. What if like the weather is bad? What if you have work? What if you get sick? Right? So then it doesn't allow you to do as much. So then at the end of it, I usually tell people, take what you've learned, go and practice, come back when you're ready. A month later, 2 months later, they'll come back to class 11. I've helped them fix some questions and stuff like that. All right, go off and do your homework. See you in a couple of months, and then they'll have their final class. And then typically by that point, the dog's off leash and they're showing me everything to make sure that's correct. So that's if you want that level. For what you're dealing with behaviorally, 6 is the minimum I would suggest. 2 on the heel, 1 on people coming over, 1 on socialization, 1 on stationary work, leaving the 6th as a variable. Okay. Anything else?
I guess I'm thinking about like if we were to do the 6 and then do another 6 or something, if we wanted to expand on what we've learned, is that a possibility or something?
You can, it's just more expensive.
Okay.
So if you commit to 12 up front, you get a cheaper per class rate.
Okay.
So I think 12 is like $16.75, and don't quote me on that because I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's around that price range. 6 is $1,000. So then you do 6, then 6, that's $2,000. Right? Now the other thing is I'm booked into July now. So like if you book your 6, the way it works is Marie goes, okay, you want 6 classes? Here's the time, and you say yes, it works. Let's say it's 5 o'clock on a Monday. 5 o'clock on a Monday for 6 weeks plus 1, so 7 weeks. That is your time. No one's gonna take it from you. Okay. But let's say you cancel 2 times or something like that. Come the 7th week, you still have a couple of classes left over, but you've used up what we call your priority. Okay? Because evenings and weekends are my busiest times. So Maria might tell you, like, hey, you used up your priority, it was the 7th week, you have 2 classes left over, we have someone that we need to book for that time, and she'll give you other times to finish those last 2 classes. So if you do 6, and then you're like, hey, sign us up for another 6, you might have to wait a month to 2 months to finish the second 6. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's up to you. I don't care. The other thing is the way I format the programs is a bit different. I know we have the behavioral stuff, but I most likely try to do both things at once. So like, let's say it wasn't behavioral, it would be heel, 2 classes, recall, 3rd class. Then we do like place work, 4th class, sitting down, 5th or 6th class. I'm teaching it differently than it would if it was a 6-week program. You know, because I'm going, okay, I only have you for this much time, and this is the important stuff that we need to focus on, because this other stuff is just like icing on the cake. Okay, that's why I said that 6th class is a variable. If everything's going great, I'm more than happy to teach recall for the final class, whatever. And then you just have to practice your work. So,
What's recall?
common cold.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had clients like really like just, like I got one right now that their dog, like they're already walking their dog off leash, and they just had their 5th class. And they're only doing 6. But every week they do their homework and they come back. They also happen to have a really good, like the dog's got a good temperament, takes to the collar well and everything. So that's helped them. But we've covered heel, recall, stay, and place. So all that's left is sitting down, which we're doing next class. But they're already walking the dog off leash, and they're already taking the dog to the park, and he comes off leash already. Recall usually takes a couple of months, but because they live right across the street from one park and they live a few blocks from Oz Park, their leash practice every day. So I don't come in going like, oh, I'm only going to teach you this much because you only pay me so much money. I go, you pay for my time. If I show up and you're doing your homework and stuff and you have time left over, like I just keep teaching. Okay? So, other questions? So when it comes to like timing and stuff, Maria will let you know when you can, like, what dates are open. So it'll be a little bit of a wait if you're wanting to work with me. We work outside, by the way. I work here in my facility still too, like the weather's bad and everything, but we're starting to transition over to Oz Park. If you guys are familiar with Oz Park. It's here in Lincoln Park. It's about 13 minutes away from here. It's the busiest park in Chicago. Dogs, bikers, rollator strollers, people, bar mitzvah parties, jazz bands, like all this shit is going on over there. So we're gonna be right there in the middle of everything, we're gonna be training. So, yeah, it's busy, okay? And you're gonna see everything working in that context. If we end up training here for whatever reason, it doesn't affect your training, okay? It's just his number might be lower here. So then when you go outside and I would educate you, I would say like, all right, well then this is how you're gonna find the number, like today, outside. And then you go off and you just do your homework for the week, okay? Anything else?
I did have a question. He's 4 now. Will that
No.
in any way affect?
I had a dog that's 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So age doesn't matter.
Okay.
I've trained dogs as little as 12.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
No.
No, I think that was it.
Yeah.
If you'd like to see our work, feel free to go to my YouTube channel. You can access it through my website. Just click on any video there. It should take you to my YouTube. Lesson 1s are good to watch because no one knows what they're doing. You know, there's that dog, Doug. So if you go to my channel and you search Doug, you'll see him, little blue nose pit. You know, pretty solid dog. And then you'll see just his intensity and like how much we're able to like accomplish with them. And then Maria will get in contact with you, and then she'll kind of follow up with everything I said, give you the pricing and stuff, and then help you with options for getting set up. Please be aware, there's a 5 to 7 business day turnaround time, because she's got to book consultations that are ahead of you, other people, new onboarding clients are ahead of you. So it's kind of like a line.
Yeah.
So when you turn around, if you're in the line for consultation, you got to get in line for booking your training.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
No, she's great. She was really responsive and everything. So.
Yeah, we have to change things because you have to pay first before she does anything. Before we would book you, then you would pay, and people would waste our time or her time. So then I was like, we're getting so busy, and then people were complaining because it was taking so long for her to try to. But she's trying to like pay for this, like people weren't paying.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let's change it up. Like make them pay first if they want to book a consultation, whatever. So it's helped speed up the process a little bit. But she's still got like a bunch of people in the queue. So
Yeah.
otherwise, nothing out the ordinary here in terms of stuff that I've dealt with. Pretty straightforward in my opinion. I just think you have the right tool, you have the right mindset, and everything like that. I just don't think you have the right methodology.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
We're good. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you need anything else, you let us know. If there's something you forgot to ask, you're welcome.